Welcome to the 88th Public Liveletter Recap. Here we're gonna quickly go over everything they talked about in the latest Liveletter, which is probably gonna be the last Liveletter for patch 7.3. As the Liveletter itself is in Japanese, and I do not speak Japanese, I use translations from the Final Fantasy XIV Discord server. I will have a link to it down in the description, as they offer the great service of actually translating the Liveletter live as it happens. We of course got the trailer for the new patch, The Promise of Tomorrow. It will be coming out on August 5th, meaning we don't have a lot of time to finish those Moogle tombstones. But let's start with the content. There is a new main scenario quest. Yoshi says it's a little bit on the longer side, so hopefully it will be very good. We are getting a new dungeon with the Meso Terminal, which will of course have duty support, where you can go in with the NPCs if you prefer. And then there is a new trial that is gonna come in both normal and extreme version, but we will not be told anything more about the trial until the patch is released. Apparently the new trial is a little bit longer than the previous ones, so they're gonna be given 2 totems per clear of the extreme version. They announced some updates to Occult Crescent. First, a new exclusive instance will now always be created when entering the island as an alliance of 24 players or more. If the alliance meets Fork Tower entry requirements, an auroral mirage will occur 5 minutes after arriving on the island, and the instance exclusivity will remain until the mirage expires, which is up to about 10 minutes after arrival. After that, other players will be able to zone into the instance. They have changed the minimum numbers of players required to use the Sanguine Cipher to enter the Fork Tower. It used to be 16, but now will be increased to 24. This makes sense because apparently the Fork Tower has some body checks that are very difficult or downright impossible to do with only 16 players. In addition, it will now be possible to check the Sanguine Ciphers that have been offered and your selection status, so you will know how many people have already signed up, and if your entry is confirmed, eligible for selection, or if you're ineligible for selection. Like before, if you want to get into the Sanguine Tower, you will have to offer at least 1 Sanguine Cipher, and those who have not offered the Sanguine Cipher will not be selected. To make sure that we do not have issues with the auroral mirages happen during critical encounters, the weather effect is gonna be delayed a little bit while a critical encounter is ongoing. So if you wanna get into the tower, you're not gonna get stuck in a critical encounter and the timer is gonna run out on you before you can even get to the tower, which is quite frustrating. And finally, an adjustment to the treasure coffers found with encounters with either the persistent pots or happy bunnies will now always contain enlightenment gold pieces or silver pieces, to kind of make their reward a little bit more worth it. In other content coming in the patch, we're getting the Echoes of Anadiel Part 2, which is Sandoria, the second walk, and we're getting a new Crystalline Conflict Arena, which is the Bayside Battleground, placed in Tuliolal. There is a new treasure dungeon, Vault Oneiron. The new Unreal is gonna be the Wreath of Snakes. So if you want to take part in the Unreal, this is a perfect time to start practicing. And the chat bubble feature is gonna be added with 7.3, something I am quite excited for. Cutter's Cry is finally getting duty support. Apparently they made Cutter's Cry early on in A Realm Reborn and ignored every regulation that they had set for designing dungeons, making it a little bit more difficult to make it duty support available. But now it's gonna work. Also, at last, Hrothgar are getting expanded headgear support, with the additional option to actually hide Viera ears or allow them to just clip through things. I'm actually personally happy with how they are handling the Viera ears, because in some headpieces you might want your ears to show and some not, which I think is very handy. Another addition is that bangs will now display while wearing hood-type headgear, which is gonna make all of the hoods look so much better, and I am very excited. In patch 7.31, we're getting the new Cosmic Exploration, where we go to the new star Faena, and we're getting the new weapon upgrade quest. They have made some tweaks to the weapon upgrades, So if you're in a rush, you will need to do a lot, but if you're more relaxed, then there will be some dailies apparently, and those will be enough for the upgrade. And of course, doing the quest once will be enough. We're gonna have to see how this looks when we actually get it in the game. In patch 7.35, we are getting a new dungeon with the Pilgrim's Traverse, which looks like it's located in Ilmag. Then we are getting the new Ally Society quest with the Yaku, and of course inconceivably further Hildebrand adventures. They showed us the entrance cutscenes for the new Alliance raid. Because the orchestration roles from the raid do have a very strong nostalgic value for some players, they are changing the drop system a little bit to make them more easily obtainable. So the orchestration roles will now drop from Alliance specific treasure coffers, not subjected to the weekly reward limit. There is going to be 3 from the second boss, 3 from the third boss, and 6 from the fourth boss, hopefully giving you more chance to get the music you want. We were shown some of the gear from the raid, and I gotta say, it is looking marvelous. I see several pieces I'm gonna want to collect. Now moving to PvP. PvP Series 9 is beginning, and there will be some PvP action adjustments, and new items available to exchange with trophy crystals. There is a new crystalline conflict area, the Bayside Battleground, and 2 new PvP tiers are being added, Omega and Ultima. Players will now be able to register for casual matches in parties of up to 2 players, so if you want to do a crystalline conflict with a friend, you can now do that. Well, they have been thinking about maybe allowing 4 players to queue up together. It hasn't been decided yet, and to begin with, they want to start with 2 players. They are adding a timer, which will indicate when medicine kits appear on the field. They've made adjustments to the action Purify. Recast time has been reduced from 24 seconds to 4 seconds. Mana point consumption has been increased from 0 to 2500, and resilience effect duration changed from 3 seconds to 2 seconds. Also, the following statuses will now have persistent visual effects. These are the Undead Redemption, the Nebula, the Shaitan, the Wreath of Fire, and the Wreath of Ice. Then they show the new PvP glam. These are meant to be very casual looking pieces, and I could see some pieces being quite popular. They showed the new treasure dungeon a little bit. It seems to have this roulette thing, and it looks like it could be quite fun. Then we were shown some rewards, which I believe is from the treasure dungeon. And then we were shown new crafter and gatherer gear. Next, they showed off the new deep dungeon. Yoshi P mentioned that there are a few things they want to change with Final Fantasy XIV overall, and he touched on a few of those things during the introduction of the deep dungeon. First, of course, they explained what a deep dungeon is. It's basically a dungeon where the architecture changes each time player enters or explores. Players begin at the designated level for each deep dungeon and gain experience as they progress towards the deepest floor. Deep Dungeon has specific weapons and gear that are enhanced as you play. The challenge is to try to get as deep as you can while utilizing all your skills and abilities to get past the different dangers you encounter on the way. As you do this, you can find some unearthing coffers and hidden treasure that are gonna give you different rewards. And in past Deep Dungeons, there have been some pretty nice things dropping from them, including mounts and gears and cosmetic items. Deep Dungeons can also be an excellent place to gain experience for classes you want to level up. The new Deep Dungeon is the Pilgrim's Traverse, which is going to release during patch 7.35. The underlying theme of this dungeon is that it's meant to be a deep dungeon for everyone. Whether you're more casual or hardcore, whether you fly solo or run with a fixed party, Pilgrim's Travel is supposed to have something for everyone to enjoy. Or at least that is the goal this time around. Now I'm gonna read to you what Yoshi P said as translated by the Final Fantasy Discord. And he says, so what does this concept mean? It's been more than 10 years since 2.0. 2.0 really didn't have that much content. We've been adding a lot of content since. If you think back, the uneven patches that added new alliance raids, for example, they were more casual leaning. On the other hand, the event patches brought savage raids and were more hardcore. We've added ultimate to uneven patches, but just this phrasing decides what kind of content is for a specific player base. I've been reading a lot of the feedback you gave after the last live letter, so I've been doing a lot of thinking since that I myself am kind of deciding already when we add new content what kind of a player is supposed to enjoy it. We have so much content in the game right now, but for someone who doesn't do Savage, an even patch might bring 0 new content. When we're adding 10 sorts of new content, hardcore players might enjoy 3 of them, casual players might enjoy 3, all around maybe 4 to 6. It's rare to have someone who enjoys all 10. So a design philosophy change I want to get into is to show how there are different ways to enjoy the same content, in a casual way or in a more hardcore way. I still believe that both sides need their own extremes. Definitely casual or super hardcore content is needed. Deep Dungeons, for example, has the solo clear from floor 1. But that's an element that's basically non-existent for players that enjoy playing the content as a group of 4. So then you want to talk about the Deep Dungeon itself. Every 10 floors are gonna give you a bit of a breather as it used to before. As we are sliding in the Deep Dungeon, instead of going up or down, there is gonna be a lot of scenery changes. And of course, plenty of different type of bosses. This Deep Dungeon will have the Fairy King petitioning the Warrior of Light to undertake a survey of an architectural remnant of the Church of the First Light in Ilmeg. The goal is to discover what ties the fallen church to the Faefolk, and hidden truth regarding the Fairy King themselves. Deep Dungeons are always split into 10 floor intervals, with the 10th floor always having a boss in it, and there are gonna be different type of bosses. Your gear is gonna upgrade as you find treasure chests around the area, which is gonna upgrade either your weapon or your armor. Meaning you don't need to prepare any special gear to enter, everyone is on an even playing field. After you enhance your weapon enough, you can take it out of the Deep Dungeon and use it in normal content as well. This is of course mostly gonna be used for glam, but these look quite gorgeous, with these sort of a stained glass effect on them. Now the initial quest is gonna be completed by defeating the boss at floor 30, just like it has in previous iterations of the Deep Dungeon. Now in previous Deep Dungeons, the early floors could either be done with a fixed party or a matched party, while the later floors could only be attempted with fixed parties, or of course solo if you wanted. But in this version, you will be able to have a matched party all the way through to level 100. So if you don't have a fixed party, you can simply queue with other random players, hopefully making the later levels more accessible. Now, party knockouts. In previous Deep Dungeons, you had to reset from floor 1 or 21 after a party knockout. In Pilgrim's Travel, there will on the other hand be more restart areas to go from, so you will also be able to restart from level 31, 51 or 71, giving us few more checkpoints along the way. You need to defeat the boss on floor 99 to reach the end, and then on floor 100 you can take some screenshots. This is apparently the same way the previous Deep Dungeons have been. I can't personally attest to it simply because I don't think I've ever reached level 100 in any of them, but I might go for it in this one. They will also be adding a duty that allows you to directly challenge the floor 99 boss as often as you like. And while beating the boss through this duty does not count as actually finishing up to floor 99 and does not give you access to floor 100, it is a good way to actually practice the boss. To open up the final boss instance, you need to reach level 99, so ERCP recommends thinking of it as another checkpoint, even if you have to go back to level 71 to then progress again. You can access the fight by speaking to an NPC, and it can be challenged with a party of 1 to 4 members. There are also new additions being added to the challenge log. The rewards there will be the highest level horde, but these are weekly rewards, so they think that's gonna balance it out. UCP showed us one of the rewards, which is this very, very colorful little mount. And then this mount that kind of looks like a planted canopy and a chandelier. And then ERCP simply started showing off other mounts, including this hoverboard, which is not from the Deep Dungeon. And this absolutely adorable little... I don't know what this is, but it's adorable and I need it. And then the show does this adorable little minion that also seems to drop from the Pilgrim's Traverse. Next they talked about the final verse Quantum. To enter it, you need to use the offering that you got from the quest, unlocked by reaching floor 100. The offering is only consumed upon defeating the boss and opening the treasure coffer that appears. So you should not have to worry about actually failing the boss and then losing your offering and being unable to re-enter. The boss is challenged with a party of 4 and Party Finder can be used. Now 50 offerings are required to challenge the final verse, but when you reach level 100 and finish the quest, you will obtain 40 offerings. So after reaching level 100 you should have plenty to get you in there. More offerings can be found by unearthing pieces of the accursed hoard, and these can also be traded on the market board. There are 5 types of offering: the sacramental spirits, spices, grains, light, and lilies. Up to 8 of each type can be used for a total of 40 offerings at once. So while you only need 15 to fight, adding more actually brings its own perks. The more offerings you add, the more challenging the boss is gonna be. The different type of offerings relate to the different stats apparently. This allows you to actually tailor the boss to your party. Perhaps you may struggle a little bit with your damage, so you might want to increase the boss's light damage instead. Or of course you can just go all out and just max out the boss in everything. In addition, the mechanics of the boss are also gonna change, and as players we are encouraged to experiment to see which kind of difficulty suits us the best. And this is especially good because if you don't manage to clear the boss, all your offerings are going to be returned to you, so you aren't going to be losing out on offerings. Now apparently 40 offerings is more difficult than the 4th floor of a Savage Fight, but if you do manage to finish with 40 offerings, you do get a title. Now of course if you add more offerings, you are gonna get more. So the final verse has guaranteed drops proportionate to the number of offerings made. So more offerings equal more loot. But they promise they are trying to improve the possibility for the different playstyles of all players, so everyone has a bit more content. So the hope is that if they add 10 different contents, that players can find 7 things they are interested in. That is at least seems to be the dream goal. Now if you decide to brave Pilgrim's Travel alone, it is gonna be similar to the previous Deep Dungeons. Finishing the Pilgrim's Travel solo will grant you an achievement and a title, and there will also be a ranking board. Reaching floor 100 will be as challenging as reaching it in previous dungeons, and apparently the solo ranking requires you to start on floor 1. Now for Deep Dungeon effects, commenters provide various benefits such as displaying the entire map, or reducing the number of enemies in the next area, while treasure coffers enhance your weapons and armor, give you commenters, give you juniper incense, or illuminated ether pool glass fragments. Different things drop from the different chest colors. In the Deep Dungeon, we're gonna have something called votives. These cause a variety of effects to be produced in the subsequent floor, both positive and negative. Players may be transformed into powerful monsters, Irradiant may be applied to all party members, the map may be hidden, or the number of traps may be increased. There may be more effects, but these were the ones they specifically mentioned. There will be no negative effects happening though until after floor 30. The juniper incense can be used to receive various forms of aid from Fayul. These includes powerful attacks and support throughout the current floor. Illuminated etherpool glass fragments can be exchanged for various items, including medical supplies for dungeon exploration and framer kits, while the Accursed Horde contains all kinds of items from mounts to minions to orchestration rolls. Finally, we ended on some system updates. First, the blacklist improvements. They are making improvements to the blacklist system. I will be making a separate video on that will release sometimes later today or early tomorrow. There are changes to the Phoenix Down. The Tufts of Phoenix Down can now be used in the dungeons, instant dungeons, treasure dungeons, guild test, trials with 4 players only, and variant dungeons. You will be able to buy the Tufts from vendors, and Phoenix Down will be stackable with a maximum of 999 Tufts. A 360-second recast timer will be added. Cast bars are being added to the nameplates of boss rank enemies. These are enabled by default, but you can turn them off if you don't like them. They're adding an update to the group post that allows you to take vertical screenshots instead of the regular horizontal ones. You will be able to rotate the screen by 90 degrees at the touch of a single button, making it easier to capture these pictures. The portrait images can be previewed without rotating the screen, and then the preview image can then be rotated and captured. They have also added the ability to rotate text stickers. By pressing the preview button when making a picture, you can actually add stickers or frames to your image. Once you're done with the preview, you simply swap the mode so the screenshot is taken in higher resolution. And hopefully this is gonna make it easier to take these pictures. They've added more voices to the Doman Mahjong, those being Vuklamat, Koana, and Bakul Jaja. They're adding the option to change the character display range. The standard is 100 meters, which is the default setting, but they're also adding a wide and maximum settings. The maximum numbers of characters displayed at once will still remain the same. Then we have the updated chat bubble feature. The chat bubbles coming in 7.3 are optional, but they will be displayed by default. Text will continue to display in the chat log as normal, and you can set the feature on or off according to the different chat modes. So if you only want it, for example, for your party chat, you can put chat bubbles on that and keep it off for everything else. You can also change the chat bubble font and color depending on the chat mode. You can choose if the chat bubbles display only the first line or the first 2 lines of text, but they can never display more than that. So you are not going to be bombarded with a humongous chat bubble filling up your screen. If there's a longer message, you're going to have to check it out in the chat window. They did debate if they wanted to have the chat bubble showing up in group content, but they decided not to, simply because they don't want people to end up feeling forced to have to use it. For example, if the community decides that people have to use a specific macro or something to announce if they have a debuff. So the goal is simply they don't want to create an environment where players might feel forced by other players to use a feature during raids, for example. But this is for now, and depending on feedback, they might change things in the future. And that's it for the 88th live letter. Tell me, what are you most excited for in patch 7.3? I, for one, am excited for the new planet we're gonna explore in Cosmic Exploration, and I saw some really pretty armor I would like to get. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a commendation by liking and subscribing, and in the end, all I wanna say is takk fyrir að horfa og the yndislegan dag.